Okay, well, we're cutting our hay today. First cutting, it is June 30th. Let's see if my old tractor or mower are going to blow up. Which one first? We got our first cutting coming in. We got to knock all these weeds back, so hopefully we get something that's worth actually paying coming in afterwards in our second cutting that we get this year. We had a very nice stand of alfalfa here. We planted it 2 years ago, I believe. And then last winter we got a bunch of snow, and then some of that melted and turned to a big sheet of ice. We could ice skated on this for a lot of the winter and killed a lot of our alfalfa, winter kill. And the stuff like this drier stuff that's a little higher up, that'll survive. That's about the only alfalfa that survived. So the rest out there is weeds and a little bit of grass. And it sounds like everybody else in the valley here had the same issue. So not just us. So we stopped cutting our hay. Not because of our own choice, but because of the tractor.
Yes.
We had a catastrophic failure due to the PTO, which in turn turned into a mower failure. And so that's why we have that nice thick strip out there that needs to be cut yet.
Yep, it's a little bit frustrating. So we'll go show you a little bit more of that.
I was cutting and the PTO quit engaging. Okay, I'm going to start cutting here. So we'll turn PTO on. Do this one-handed without killing the tractor. The PTO is a power takeoff that turns the drive on the mower. Most tractors have them. So you could tell it was turning too fast, but I thought maybe I could just get it done. And 2 swaths into it, which means like 2 passes through the hayfield into it. Cutter stopped cutting, which was the drive arm, which is down here. And they had welded this together at some point before I got the mower, and the weld broke. Probably because it was running too fast.
I wanted to add that our tractor has high and low gear for the PTO, and the linkage broke, and the tractor PTO was stuck in high gear, but the mower was meant to be running low gear.
So we have 2 broken things.
So now the PTO is broken, mower's broken, and I only had like this much left to do. So I got this swath, and a swath, two more cuttings on the other side. It would take maybe 5-10 minutes to do with the tractor if it was functioning. But anyway, we're gonna have a neighbor who does custom baling come over and do it, and we'll give him half the hay for this, for him to come over and rake and bale it and cut that little bit. So hopefully he'll come over and he'll rake this up. We got some good grass hay here. We're supposed to get rain in 2 days from now. When you go to cut your hay, you have to let it dry out a certain amount of time, which means stop watering for us here in the West. Then you cut it, and then you need 3-4 days to let it dry, and then rake it and bale it. You could get rain on it, and then if it gets rain, it could turn moldy. It is stressful to plan cutting hay because of the weather, because you have to time out when the rain is going to come and when it's not. And if you cut hay, it's guaranteed to rain. Just like if you tear your roof off, it's guaranteed to rain. If you're going to repair your roof, it's going to rain.
So this whole cutting our hay, which, you know, it's grass. Like, we have to come back to the fact of it's grass, it's alfalfa, it's horse food and cow food and goat food. Like, it's not super high on our priority list, but it has taken us an immense amount of time, an immense amount of money, and we are like right at the brink of we have all the equipment, we're almost there, and then something breaks. And I think that's just kind of something that you have to deal with when you're working with old equipment and when you're haying.
We bought this place 3 years ago, and all the outfields here that we have it's probably about 5 acres of it. You know, it's a small place, but 5 acres of it was just a yellow star thistle weed and barren, and hadn't been watered or taken care of in years. Thinking we would like it to have a nice lush green field, seeded it to alfalfa, and thought we would just, you know, make our own hay because that's the thing to do. We have horses, and we'd like to feed our horses our own hay. And we went with the cheap way possible to get equipment. So we bought the tractor that came with the place. That there's obvious things wrong with the tractor. Like the bucket has the framing on it, and it's got big brakes on it. So if you went to pick up anything, the frame would splay out when you lifted with the bucket. One tire's on backwards. I couldn't get an oil filter off because it probably hadn't been changed in 10 years. On and on. Anyway.
Yeah.
And then, so we got that.
So
and
our
then,
tractor's not perfect, but we're making do with what we have.
It's great. Yeah, it's been a great tractor.
It's been a good tractor. Like, we are thankful for it, for sure.
Mm-hmm. And then we got a mower from a buddy who got it for dirt cheap, and he just traded it for first cutting of hay. Mm-hmm. And then we got a baler that we bought at an auction for $1,000. Sight unseen. Totally clueless. Had no idea about balers. Went and picked it up with a tractor and hooked onto it and drove it home.
So that was our last season saga of cutting hay, is the baler didn't work. So all the other equipment worked, and then they messed with it and fixed it over the winter, and so now that's up and running. It's just been one thing after another with cutting this hay. So all in all, it stinks, but you know, it's not the worst possible thing. We did have all that winter kill, and our fields died off, so they filled in with a bunch of weeds. So these cuttings of hay are largely weeds, so they're going to be for someone's goats or something like that. It's not a huge loss, honestly. So the can we cut our own hay someday saga kind of continues. We're considering getting a new tractor in addition to this one, just to kind of have a backup. He can fix this, he can do the weld, that'll be fine. But the tractor PTO, that's going to be a winter project in the garage, which they can do. It's just going to take some time to take it apart. So we're considering getting another tractor between now and then just to have a backup, because that would honestly be really nice because we use the tractor a lot.
I was just thinking out loud, if you're thinking about buying a small property and thinking about raising some hay and starting from scratch like we did, I would only recommend it if you're comfortable letting somebody take half your hay, or you're mechanically inclined and enjoy tinkering and wrenching on old antique stuff, because
or want to learn it,
or you have money to buy new equipment, because that would be different. But this stuff is very much older than both of us, our baler and our mower and our tractor. I'm not a mechanic. I'm like a 4 out of 10 on mechanic ability. Like, I could change oil and do simple stuff like that, but as far as like tearing engines down and stuff, I'm definitely not up to par with that. So
you're learning. You've learned a lot. So in all, we are definitely not making any money off of this hay. And we haven't. And if you consider all the things, we have not made a dime for sure on hay.
When we bought the property, there is an old irrigation well that the pump had seized in, so we replaced that for $5,000. So we're starting money way behind, years out of breaking even just on that.
Yeah.
Let alone buying the irrigation equipment, meaning like the wheel lines and all the hoses and everything else. Fixing the PVC that was underground, and I had to dig it up, and it took me, I don't know, a solid month of digging PVC and splicing it all together and getting it all fixed and working again, which is very expensive also. You don't think of that kind of thing.
And all the riser heads and all of that for the wheel line.
Yeah, if you're in the eastern U.S., you probably don't have to irrigate as much, but out in the west here we do.
Yeah. Maybe we'll have a follow-up if we can someday cut hay successfully. You'll see where we'll kind of share some of our failures like this. Right now it's a failure. Hopefully one day it's a success. And we'll share some of our stuff that we're doing in our garden. And honestly, that's the stuff we really enjoy a lot more than cutting this field. This field is not what we really enjoy.
I do really enjoy growing the hay, but it takes a lot of time to move water and whatnot and keep up on it. And it's frustrating because there's a lot of weeds that encroach from neighboring properties and whatnot. And
we don't spray anything.
We don't spray anything.
We have bees.
We could.
We don't want to.
Yeah, we choose not to. So when you have mechanical failures on stuff that you don't want to work on, it's extremely frustrating.
Yep.
When everything works, it's euphoric. Like, I'm super happy, pumped. It's awesome. It's great. Best feeling in the world. But, if you go out there and you think you're going to get something done and you have a catastrophic failure that sets you back for a couple weeks, you really consider your life decisions. And we're at that point where we're thinking about, like, do we keep going with this or not? Because it's been every year we've been trying to fix something or get it working or keep things moving forward.
And yeah, it's tons of money, and it's tons of big equipment, and it's tons of learning, and it's tons of time when we could be working on our produce that actually we enjoy growing a lot more. And it's like cool to like dig up whatever you're growing or harvest whatever you're growing. Like, I don't get all too excited about hay, honestly. Like, I like seeing a big stack of hay, and I like being able to have hay for our horses and stuff, but it's not as exciting as the produce.
Like, you see the little cornfield back there, and that will make more money than our entire hay operation, which is substantially larger and takes way more of my time. So we're trying to think of, like, ways to pivot.
Upon editing this video, we realized there are a couple of additional costs we overlook. For instance, the cost of electricity to pump the water for irrigation is quite high. Also, every time the tractor or one of the implements breaks, it seems like the replacement part is at least a $300 part that is a specialty part that just has to be bought in order to continue. That issue could of course be resolved with newer equipment, but then again the newer equipment is a huge upfront expense. Another initial cost is the cost of seed for the field. Grass, alfalfa, or whatever you grow costs to seed it initially. Then a way to spread the seed is needed. We bought a seeder for the four-wheeler that rarely gets used. Some years the field also needs to be reseeded, which again costs money. There are probably some things that we've overlooked, but the point is that growing and cutting a field for hay isn't free or even cheap in our situation.
So that's coming into the decision making of what we're going to do next. Like, are we going to buy another tractor, or are we going to have somebody come bale it for us, or are we going to, rent a tractor or something else? Who knows? There's all these ideas that we have, but it's very stressful for someone in our shoes. Like, I even consider just taking the bucket out. I mean, the tractor still runs, just taking the bucket out, scoop all these rows up and push them into a barn somewhere and let it sit under a roof. But there's all sorts of ideas that you could run through when your hard work's sitting on the ground and possibly about to go to waste by getting rained on or just sitting and drying out too much. This is our catastrophic failure for this first cutting for this year. Wait for the second cutting for the second catastrophic failure. It's coming.
Well, one way or another, we got the hay baled up, and now it's time to get stacked up in the barn. If you made it to this point in the video, thanks for watching, and stay tuned for more.